If you wish to be respected, respect yourself. Epictetus. What if I told you that the biggest reason people don't take you seriously has nothing to do with your looks, your money, or your status, but with a few quiet habits you practice every single day, often without realizing it? Habits so subtle they feel harmless, yet powerful enough to erode your respect in conversations, relationships, and even in your own mind. You might be disciplined. You might be intelligent. You might even be kind. And still, these habits can silently undermine how others see you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. The Stoics understood something most people ignore. Respect is not demanded, chased, or negotiated. It is revealed through behavior, through what you tolerate, through what you react to, through what you allow to control you. Lose control there and respect leaks away, slowly, invisibly, but inevitably. In this video, we're going to expose 10 habits that destroy your respect, not from modern opinion, but through the timeless lens of Stoic wisdom. These are patterns warned against. These are behaviors Seneca cautioned would weaken a man from the inside out. Watch this video till the very end, because the final habits are the ones most people never question, and breaking them can fundamentally change how you carry yourself, how others respond to you, and how firmly you stand in your own values. Number 1, seeking validation instead of self-approval. Seeking validation instead of self-approval is one of the quietest ways you give away your power, and the most dangerous part is that it feels harmless at first. You tell yourself you're just being agreeable, just staying likable, just making sure you're seen the right way. But slowly, almost invisibly, your sense of worth drifts out of your own hands and into the unpredictable opinions of others. The Stoics warned about this long before social approval became currency. Wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." When you live this way, respect erodes from the inside. You stop standing firmly in who you are because you're constantly adjusting, scanning faces, reading reactions, waiting for permission to feel okay. When you seek validation, you're teaching yourself that your judgment is not enough. You begin to outsource your self-esteem. Your mood rises and falls based on feedback you don't control. Approval becomes a drug, and like all dependencies, it weakens you over time. Seneca warned that he who depends on himself alone is powerful, he who depends on others is weak. Read that slowly. This isn't about arrogance or isolation. It's about authority over your inner life. When you don't approve of yourself first, no amount of praise will ever feel secure. You'll always need more, and people sense this need instantly. Respect fades when your confidence looks borrowed instead of rooted. There's a subtle anxiety that comes with chasing validation. You start anticipating reactions before you even act. You rehearse words in your head not based on truth, but on acceptance. Over time, this fractures your integrity. Epictetus said, "If you want to be invincible, make sure that no one can hurt you by their opinion." When you internalize this, something shifts. You realize that every time you bend yourself to be approved, you're quietly telling the world that you don't trust your own standards. And if you don't trust them, why should anyone else? Self-approval is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It's calm, grounded, almost invisible. It's the quiet decision to respect your own judgment even when it isn't celebrated. This is where Stoicism becomes practical, not philosophical. The Stoics didn't seek applause, they sought alignment. Reminded himself daily, "I have to do what is right. The rest doesn't matter." That sentence alone can dismantle your need for validation if you let it. You don't need agreement to act rightly. You don't need praise to remain steady. You only need clarity about your values. If you want to rebuild respect, you must retrain your inner dialogue. Start noticing how often you look outward for confirmation. Notice how quickly you doubt yourself when approval is missing. Don't judge this habit, observe it. The Stoics believed awareness was the first form of discipline. Once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it. When you feel the urge to seek reassurance, pause, ask yourself one question: do I approve of this choice? Nor will they like it, not will it be praised, just this. This question recenters authority back where it belongs. Here's a simple Stoic exercise to practice daily. At the end of the day, sit quietly and review your actions, not through the lens of how others might have perceived them, but through your own principles. Ask yourself where you acted with integrity and where you compromised it for approval. Seneca practiced this exact reflection and wrote about it often. This isn't self-criticism, it's self-ownership. Over time, this habit strengthens your internal compass. You begin to trust yourself again. And when you trust yourself, your presence changes. Another practice is voluntary detachment from praise. When approval comes, acknowledge it without clinging to it. Let it pass through you without becoming part of your identity. Warned, be content to see what you really are. This doesn't mean rejecting positive feedback. It means not building your self-worth on it. When praise no longer defines you, criticism loses its power too. You become balanced, centered, harder to shake. You should also train yourself to sit with disapproval without reacting. Not resisting it, not correcting it, just allowing it to exist without internal collapse. This is where real respect begins to form, both self-respect and the kind others feel without knowing why. Epictetus said, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself, but reply, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" There's humor here, but also strength. When you stop defending your image, you stop being controlled by it. Self-approval doesn't mean you're finished growing. It means growth is guided by values, not applause. When you improve yourself to be approved, you become dependent. When you improve yourself to be aligned, you become formidable. People respect those who don't need to be liked to remain steady. There's a calm gravity to them. They don't chase attention. They don't explain themselves excessively. They don't fold under pressure. They move deliberately. If you want to adopt this habit deeply, create a short list of non-negotiable principles. Not goals, principles. Things you approve of regardless of outcome. Revisit them often. Measure yourself against them, not against reactions. This is pure Stoicism in action. Lived by this internal law, reminding himself that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. When your thoughts are anchored in self-approval, your emotional life stabilizes. Let go of the illusion that validation brings security. It doesn't, it brings dependency. Self-approval brings freedom, and freedom is magnetic. When you stop asking, "Do they approve of me?" and start living from "I approve of myself when I act rightly," something fundamental shifts. You stand taller without trying. You speak less but mean more. You no longer perform, you express. And that is where respect is born. Take this seriously. Practice it daily. Catch yourself when you reach outward and gently pull that authority back inward. This is not an overnight change, but it is a decisive one. The Stoics didn't seek to control others. They sought to master themselves. Do the same. Approve of yourself first. Everything else will follow. Number 2, yourself to people who don't care. There is a quiet way people lose respect, and it rarely happens in one dramatic moment. It happens sentence by sentence, explanation by explanation, as you keep talking long after your point was already clear. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus warned, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters." What he was pointing to was not ignorance, but restraint. Power lives in restraint. Respect grows when you don't feel the need to convince, justify, or defend yourself to people who were never listening in the first place. When you give away something valuable, your composure. You don't because you are weak. You because part of you wants approval. Part of you hopes that if you just add one more sentence, one more clarification, one more justification, the other person will finally understand, finally agree, finally validate you. But wrote, "I do my duty, other things trouble me not." Read that slowly. He did not say, "I explain my duty until everyone agrees." He said he does his duty and lets go. When you reverse this order. You start needing agreement before you feel at peace. That dependence quietly erodes respect, both yours and theirs. Here is the uncomfortable truth you must face if you want to grow. People who don't care will never care more because you explained better. They will care less. Every extra word signals uncertainty. Every added clarification suggests you're seeking permission. Seneca captured this when he said, "He who is brave is free." Freedom here is internal. It is freedom from the urge to be understood by everyone. When you keep talking to those who have already made up their minds, you are not communicating. You are negotiating your self-worth. Stoicism teaches you to separate what is yours from what is not. Your intentions are yours. Your effort is yours. Your clarity is yours. Other people's reactions are not. The moment you cross that boundary, you step into their mind and start rearranging furniture that isn't yours. And the more you do this, the more you teach others that your decisions are open for debate, interrogation, and approval. Respect cannot survive in that environment. You need to understand that silence is not weakness. Brevity is not rudeness. Calm is not indifference. Reminded himself daily, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Is arguing, restraint is being. When your actions are aligned, your words don't need padding. They stand on their own. When you trust yourself, you stop auditioning for agreement. There is also something deeper happening when you are trying to control outcomes. You want to control how you are perceived. You want to control misunderstanding. You want to control judgment. The Stoics would tell you this is where suffering begins. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." Your words are in your power. Their interpretation is not. Learn where to stop. Learn where your responsibility ends. If you want respect, you must first respect your own time, energy, and inner balance. Talking too much to people who don't care is a form of self-betrayal. You are giving effort where there is no return. Stoicism is ruthless about this. Not cruel, efficient. Seneca wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it. Wastes life. It drains you, dulls your presence, and leaves you feeling oddly empty afterward." Here is a simple but challenging exercise. For the next few days before you respond to anyone, pause and ask yourself one question. Is this explanation for clarity or for approval? Be honest. If it's for approval, stop. Say less. Let the silence sit. You will feel discomfort at first. That discomfort is withdrawal from validation addiction. Sit with it. Breathe. You are not in danger. You are becoming grounded. Another exercise is to practice intentional brevity. Decide in advance that you will express your point once clearly and then stop. No follow-ups unless there is a genuine request for clarification. This trains self-trust. It also trains others to take your words seriously. When you speak less, people listen more. Not because you demand attention, but because you no longer chase it. You should also train your mind to accept misunderstanding without panic. Wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinions than our own." Read that again. Is proof of that imbalance. Correct it by anchoring yourself internally. After you speak, remind yourself, "I have said enough." Repeat it. Let that be your boundary. Over time, something shifts. Your voice becomes calmer. Your posture changes. You no longer rush to fill silence. You no longer feel exposed when someone disagrees. This is Stoic strength. Quiet, unshaken, unneedy. Respect follows this naturally, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. Remember, you are not here to convince everyone. You are here to live in alignment with reason, virtue, and self-command. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do." Notice what he left out. He did not say to explain it repeatedly. When you stop leaking power. You reclaim your presence. And in that presence, respect grows silently, steadily, inevitably. Number 3. Reacting emotionally to provocation or criticism. Reacting emotionally to provocation or criticism quietly erodes your respect faster than almost anything else, and the damage often happens before you even realize what you've done. The moment you snap, justify, defend, or explain yourself under pressure, you hand over control. You may feel relief for a second, but what you're really doing is broadcasting that your emotions are easy to hijack. The Stoics understood this deeply. Warned, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. That line isn't philosophy for decoration. It's a mirror. It asks you to look at how quickly you let other people dictate your inner state. Every time you react without pause, you teach the world that your composure is negotiable. You don't lose respect because someone criticizes you. You lose respect because you rush to react as if the criticism owns you. Anger, sarcasm, wounded pride, defensive explanations, these aren't strength, they're leaks, and people sense them instantly. Epictetus was blunt about this. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. That's not about humiliation. It's about restraint. It's about refusing to perform emotionally just because someone poked at you. When you react emotionally, you reveal attachment to approval. You reveal fear of judgment. You reveal that your self-image is fragile enough to need constant protection. None of that inspires respect, no matter how clever your words sound in the moment. You don't need to silence every critic. You don't need to win every exchange. In fact, the habit of trying to win through emotional reaction is what traps you. The Stoics taught that dignity comes from self-command. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." Bravery here isn't loud, it's quiet. It's the courage to pause, to feel the emotional surge and not obey it, to let words pass through you without demanding a response. When you react instantly, you shrink your time horizon down to seconds. When you pause, you reclaim authority over yourself. That pause is where respect is born. You might tell yourself that reacting shows passion or honesty, but that's a comforting story. What it really shows is impatience with discomfort. Criticism stings because it threatens how you see yourself. Provocation irritates because it challenges your sense of control. The Stoic response isn't suppression, it's mastery. Reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The habit you're building isn't silence for the sake of silence. It's the discipline of choosing your response instead of being dragged into one. If you want to break this habit, you start by changing how you see provocation. Instead of seeing it as an attack, see it as a test. Not a test you have to pass publicly, but a private test of your self-command. Each moment of criticism becomes training. Each provocation becomes resistance. You don't grow stronger by reacting. You grow stronger by restraining yourself. That restraint isn't weakness. It's pressure held calmly. And pressure held calmly is what people respect, even if they don't consciously know why. One practical exercise is brutally simple and surprisingly difficult. Impose a mandatory delay between stimulus and response. Decide in advance that you will not respond emotionally in the first breath, the first sentence, or the first impulse. Count silently. Let the emotional wave crest and pass. You'll notice something important if you do this consistently. Most reactions lose their urgency when given a few seconds of space. What felt necessary suddenly feels optional. That space is freedom. That space is where your respect lives. Another exercise is to rehearse indifference. Not apathy, but grounded neutrality. When you feel provoked, repeat a Stoic reminder internally, something like, "This is not under my control," or "This does not touch my character." You're not lying to yourself, you're recentering. Epictetus emphasized this constant inner dialogue because he knew the mind needs direction under pressure. Without it, emotion takes the wheel. With it, you remain seated firmly in yourself. You should also practice voluntary silence. Silence is uncomfortable when your ego wants to speak. That discomfort is the point. Train yourself to let comments land without commentary. You'll discover that silence often communicates far more strength than any response could. Seneca observed, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Delay isn't avoidance, it's refinement. It allows you to respond later if needed from clarity rather than heat, and clarity commands respect without effort. This habit also requires you to loosen your grip on being understood. Emotional reactions often come from the urge to correct, explain, or defend your image. Let that go. You don't need to manage every perception. Advised, it never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people but care more about their opinion than our own. Sit with that. The more you chase approval through reaction, the more respect slips through your fingers. The less you chase it, the more naturally it arrives. Over time, as you practice non-reaction, something shifts inside you. You become slower to anger not because you're numb, but because you're anchored. Your emotional world becomes harder to invade. People feel it. They may not articulate it, but they sense that you're not easily moved, not easily rattled, not easily pulled into noise. That steadiness is magnetic. It signals maturity, self-trust, and inner order. This isn't about becoming cold or distant. It's about becoming deliberate. You still feel. You still think. You just don't spill your inner state at the feet of every comment or critique. The Stoics weren't emotionless. They were disciplined. And discipline is what transforms raw emotion into quiet authority. So take this seriously. Treat every provocation as practice, every criticism as a weight you lift internally. Pause, breathe, choose, repeat. Over time, reacting emotionally will feel beneath you, not because you're superior, but because you've it. And when that happens, respect stops being something you chase. It becomes something you carry with you calmly, wherever you go. Number 4, saying yes when you mean no. When you say yes while something inside you is clearly saying no, you quietly trade a piece of your self-respect for temporary comfort. It doesn't happen loudly. There's no dramatic collapse. It happens in small moments where you override your own judgment to avoid friction, disappointment, or disapproval. And over time, people don't just notice it, you start to feel it. Warned, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That includes the promises you make with your mouth that your mind and body never agreed to. Each false yes teaches others that your boundaries are flexible, negotiable, and ultimately, more importantly, it teaches you the same lesson. You may tell yourself you're being kind, cooperative, or understanding, but deep down, you know the difference between generosity and self-betrayal. Stoicism never asked you to be agreeable at the cost of your integrity. Epictetus was clear that freedom begins the moment you stop being ruled by fear, especially the fear of losing approval. Every unnecessary yes is rooted in that fear. Fear of conflict, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being seen as difficult. Yet respect is not built by being easy to use. It's built when your words carry weight, when people know that if you agree to something, it's real, deliberate, and backed by conviction. There's a quiet confidence that comes from alignment, when what you think, feel, and say are in harmony. Saying no when you mean no is not harsh, it's honest, and honesty creates clarity. Clarity creates trust. Even when others do like your answer, they sense the solidity behind it. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." Courage isn't loud dominance. Sometimes it's the calm refusal to act against yourself. When you abandon that courage, when you nod along while resisting internally, resentment begins to form. You may not express it outwardly, but it corrodes you from within. Resentment is the tax you pay for living without boundaries. You don't lose respect in one grand moment. You lose it gradually by training people to expect compliance instead of truth. When your yes becomes automatic, it becomes meaningless. People stop seeing it as a choice and start seeing it as a default, and defaults are taken for granted. Stoicism teaches mastery over impulses, but it also teaches loyalty to reason. If reason tells you no, but your mouth says yes, you've inverted the Stoic order. You've placed external comfort above internal alignment. That imbalance always shows, even if no one says it out loud. The most dangerous part is what happens inside you. Each time you override your inner signal, you weaken your self-trust. You start doubting your own judgment. You hesitate longer. You feel less grounded. Reminded himself daily not to act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. That urgency matters here. Life is too short to be lived on borrowed intentions. When you say yes out of habit, you drift. When you say no with clarity, you anchor yourself. This habit can be unlearned, but it requires conscious practice. Start by slowing down your responses. You don't owe anyone an immediate answer. Silence is not rudeness, it's space. Train yourself to pause before agreeing. Feel your body, notice resistance. Stoics believe the body often registers truth before the mind rationalizes it away. If tension appears, pay attention. That tension is information. Write this down somewhere, you'll see it daily. I am allowed to choose. Repeat it until it feels ordinary. Another practice is verbal restraint. You don't need elaborate explanations to justify a no. Over-explaining is another form of seeking approval. A simple, calm refusal is enough. Seneca warned against becoming a slave to hope, and hope here often disguises itself as hoping others will understand, accept, or praise your choice. Let go of that. Your responsibility is not to manage reactions. It's to act with integrity. Each time you do, your sense of self strengthens. You can also rehearse discomfort. Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort to reduce fear. Apply that principle here. Imagine the moment of saying no. Feel the unease without escaping it. Let it pass. Discomfort is temporary. Loss of self-respect lingers. Over time, your nervous system learns that nothing catastrophic happens when you choose yourself. You remain standing. The world continues, and something subtle but powerful shifts in how you carry yourself. Respect follows consistency. When your words and actions align repeatedly, people adjust. Some may push back at first. That's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign the old pattern is breaking. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In modern terms, that means being willing to be misunderstood while you reclaim your spine. You're not here to be endlessly agreeable. You're here to live deliberately. Saying no when you mean no is not about becoming rigid or cold. It's about becoming honest. It's about choosing long-term self-respect over short-term relief. When you do that, your presence changes, your voice steadies, your yes becomes valuable again. And most importantly, you stop abandoning yourself in small, invisible ways. Take that seriously. Practice it today. Let your next yes be earned. Let your next no be clean. And let your life reflect the quiet strength the Stoics believed was the foundation of all dignity. Number 5, complaining about things you can't control. Complaining about things you can't control is one of the quietest ways you bleed respect, both for yourself and in the eyes of others. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't crash into your life. It seeps in, a sigh here, a repeated grievance there, a mental habit that feels harmless, even justified. But the Stoics warned you about this long before modern life made it fashionable to vent endlessly. Wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Every time you complain about what lies beyond your command, you give that power away. You hand it to chance, to other people, to circumstances that don't even know your name. When you complain, you are saying, without words, that the world should bend to you. That reality is somehow wrong for not aligning with your preferences. And whether you realize it or not, this posture makes you smaller. It trains your mind to react instead of govern. You stop standing upright internally. You become someone who waits for conditions to improve before showing discipline, clarity, or self-respect. The Stoics saw this as a form of self-inflicted weakness. Epictetus was blunt about it. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Complaining is a reaction that demands comfort instead of commanding composure. Real respect comes from self-command, from the sense that you are steady regardless of external noise. When you complain about what you cannot control, you signal that your inner state is hostage to the outer world, that you are governed, not governing. People feel this instinctively. Even if they don't articulate it, they sense when a person has surrendered their authority. And more importantly, you feel it. Each complaint quietly reinforces the belief that you are at the mercy of forces outside yourself. Over time, this erodes your confidence. You start expecting frustration. You rehearse powerlessness. You normalize it. Stoicism never asked you to suppress emotion or pretend difficulties don't exist. It asked something far more demanding: discernment. The discipline to separate what is yours from what is not. Complaining collapses that boundary. It blurs responsibility. It makes you argue with reality instead of aligning with it. And reality never loses that argument. Seneca warned, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Complaining feeds that imagination. It keeps your attention glued to what you dislike, what you fear, what you wish were different. You relive it. You amplify it. You become fluent in dissatisfaction. If you want respect, you must change the relationship you have with adversity, not by denying it, but by refusing to dramatize it internally. The Stoic move is simple but not easy. Acknowledge what is outside your control, then release it. Not with bitterness, not with resignation, with calm clarity. This is where your power returns. When you stop complaining, you don't become passive, you become precise. Your energy stops leaking. Your mind becomes quieter, sharper, more intentional. You can feel this shift the moment you practice it. The urge to complain arises, and instead of indulging it, you pause. You ask yourself one question: is this within my control? If the answer is no, you drop it, not later, now. You redirect your focus to what is yours, your response, your standards, your next action. This is Stoic discipline in motion. This is character being forged in silence. Reminded himself daily, today I shall meet interference, ingratitude, insolence. But none of these can harm me. That wasn't optimism, it was training. To build this habit, you need practice, not motivation. Start with a mental exercise the Stoics used constantly: negative visualization, but done correctly. Briefly acknowledge that events may unfold against your preferences. Don't dwell, don't dramatize, just recognize it. Then tell yourself calmly, this does not touch my character. This trains your nervous system to decouple peace from circumstances. You stop bracing against reality, you stand within it. Another exercise is complaint fasting. Choose a set period, an hour a day, where you commit to zero verbal or mental complaints about things beyond your control. Not about people, not about delays, not about outcomes. When the impulse arises, notice it. Let it pass. This isn't repression, it's redirection. You are teaching your mind that it doesn't need to comment on everything. That silence is an option. Strength grows there. You can also use written reflection, a practice used relentlessly. At the end of the day, write down where you complained internally. Don't judge yourself. Observe. Then write one sentence reframing it through control. What part of this was mine to govern? This builds accountability without self-attack. Over time, your default response shifts. You stop narrating your frustration. You start managing your attention. What happens next is subtle but powerful. You speak less about what bothers you. When you do speak, it's measured. People begin to sense your steadiness. Not because you are louder, but because you are harder to shake. And inside, something even more important happens. You trust yourself more. You no longer fear circumstances as much because you know they don't own you. That trust is the foundation of self-respect. Stoicism teaches you that dignity is not granted by comfort. It is earned through composure. Complaining about what you can't control trains you to expect relief from the outside. Letting go of that habit trains you to generate strength from within. As Epictetus said, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and your life will go smoothly. That smoothness isn't ease, it's alignment. If you take this seriously, your life won't become problem-free, but it will become cleaner, less noise, less internal friction, more direction, and respect, both yours and others, will follow naturally. Not because you chased it, but because you stopped sabotaging it. Number 6, gossiping or speaking ill of others. Gossip feels small when it leaves your mouth, almost weightless. Just a comment, just an observation, just words. But the Stoics understood something most people miss. Every word you release is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Warned, what we do now echoes in eternity, and that includes what you say when the person you're talking about isn't there to defend themselves. The moment you speak ill of someone, even subtly, you trade a piece of your authority for momentary relief. You may feel connected, clever, or justified for a few seconds, but beneath that sensation, something erodes. Respect doesn't collapse loudly, it leaks, quietly. And gossip is one of its most efficient solvents. When you speak negatively about others, you signal instability, whether you intend to or not. You teach people around you that your words are conditional, that loyalty bends when emotions shift, that silence can't be trusted. Epictetus reminded us, if you wish to be respected, respect yourself. And that begins with discipline over the tongue. You might think you're exposing flaws in others, but what's actually being revealed is your relationship with impulse. Every time you gossip, you announce that you couldn't hold the line, that you allowed irritation, envy, resentment, or boredom to choose your words for you, and people notice, even if they nod along, even if they laugh, especially then. Stoicism isn't about pretending others are perfect. It's about refusing to outsource your inner state to external behavior. When you gossip, you hand over control. You let someone else's actions dictate your inner climate. Seneca warned against this subtle dependence when he wrote, "A man is as miserable as he believes himself to be." Speaking ill of others keeps your attention trapped outward, scanning for flaws, feeding on judgment. Over time, that habit reshapes your mind. You become sharper at noticing weakness than strength, quicker to criticize than to understand. And that sharpness doesn't turn off when you're alone. It turns inward. The same voice you use on others eventually points at you. There's also a quieter cost. Gossip trains you to seek connection through negativity. Instead of standing grounded in your own values, you bond through shared disapproval. That kind of connection is fragile. It requires a steady supply of targets, and eventually, you become one of them. The Stoics believed character was revealed not in public declarations but in private conduct. Wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Speaking ill of others keeps you tied to what you claim to rise above. Silence, on the other hand, creates distance. Power needs space. Respect grows where restraint lives. If you want to change this habit, don't start by forcing positivity. That's brittle. Start with awareness. The next time you feel the urge to comment on someone else's flaws, pause and ask yourself a simple Stoic question: is this within my control? The answer is almost always no. Their behavior isn't yours to manage, your response is. That pause is where strength is built, not later, not after reflection. Right there, in the moment where your old pattern asks to be fed and you choose otherwise. A powerful practice the Stoics used was negative visualization, but you can adapt it inwardly. Before speaking, imagine your words circling back to you, not as punishment but as weight. Ask yourself whether those words would strengthen or weaken your presence if repeated in your absence. This isn't about fear, It's about authorship. You are writing your reputation sentence by sentence. Choose lines that hold up under silence. Another exercise is voluntary restraint. For one full day, make it your discipline to speak only about what you admire, what you are working on, or what is neutral and necessary. Not as a performance, as training. Notice the discomfort. Notice how often the urge to comment arises. That urge is information. It shows you where your attention habitually rests. The Stoics believed freedom came from mastering desires, not obeying them. Each resisted impulse strengthens your inner spine. You can also redirect the energy. Gossip often disguises itself as concern or analysis. When that energy surfaces, turn it inward deliberately. Ask, what does this irritation reveal about my expectations? Seneca advised daily self-examination, not as self-criticism, but as refinement. When you shift the lens inward, you reclaim the energy gossip drains. You stop leaking power through commentary and start investing it in self-command. This matters because respect is not demanded, it's felt. People sense when your words are measured, when your silence is intentional, when your presence doesn't depend on tearing something else down. The Stoics didn't aim to control others' opinions, but they understood that dignity is magnetic. When you refuse to gossip, you become harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to categorize. You gain gravity. And here's the deeper truth. Gossip keeps you small because it anchors your identity to comparison. Stoicism calls you to a higher game, one where your worth isn't built against others but within yourself. Wrote, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. That includes your speech, especially your speech. You don't need to announce your discipline. Let it show in what you don't say. Let people feel the steadiness of someone who doesn't chase validation through judgment. Each time you choose restraint, you reclaim a fragment of respect, not just from others, but from yourself. And self-respect, the Stoics knew, is the foundation that never cracks. So start now. Watch your words like a guardian, not a censor. Speak when it adds weight. Stay silent when silence preserves strength. Over time, you'll notice something shift. Fewer explanations, less noise, more presence. And with that presence comes a quiet authority that gossip can never offer. Number 7, lacking discipline in small daily actions. When you lack discipline in the smallest daily actions, respect quietly drains away long before you notice it. Not because anyone announces it, not because someone confronts you, but because disorder always speaks louder than words. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus warned that, if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters, which is another way of saying that mastery begins with the invisible, boring, uncelebrated moments. You don't lose respect in grand failures. You lose it by letting small promises to yourself collapse again and again. Each time you ignore what you said you would do, something inside you records it. Over time, so do others. And even if no one else ever notices, you do. That inner witness never sleeps. You might think small actions don't matter, that skipping discipline in minor things is harmless. But the Stoic view is clear. Character is built atom by atom. Reminded himself that what we do now echoes in eternity, not because every action is dramatic, but because repetition shapes identity. When you neglect the little things, you train yourself to be someone who negotiates with their own word. That negotiation becomes a habit, then a lifestyle, then a reputation. Respect, both internal and external, grows from alignment. When your actions match your intentions, even in the smallest details, you become solid, predictable, grounded. When they don't, you become fragmented, and fragmentation is felt before it's explained. This isn't about perfection. Stoicism never demanded flawlessness. It demanded seriousness. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and that applies here too. The fear of discipline feels heavier than discipline itself. The mind dramatizes effort, exaggerates inconvenience, and whispers that tomorrow will be better. But tomorrow is just another today in disguise. When you delay small disciplines, you reinforce the belief that your impulses outrank your principles. That belief quietly erodes respect, not because discipline makes you impressive, but because lack of it makes you unreliable. And unreliability, even in subtle forms, is corrosive. What's dangerous is how invisible this habit is at first. No alarms go off when you abandon small standards. No immediate consequences arrive. But Stoicism teaches you to look beyond immediacy. Constantly reminded himself to zoom out to see life from above. From that view, you realize that small daily neglect is never small. It compounds. It creates internal chaos, and chaos always leaks outward. People may not know why they trust you less, why your words carry less weight, why your presence doesn't anchor a room the way it could. But the cause is simple. You haven't anchored yourself. If you want to reverse this, you don't need intensity, you need consistency. Discipline in the Stoic sense is not aggression toward yourself, it's stewardship, it's choosing order over mood. Epictetus was blunt. First say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do. Not once, not when you feel inspired, but daily, especially when you don't feel like it. Respect is born when your nervous system learns that you follow through regardless of emotional weather. Calm days, heavy days, boring days. You show up the same. That steadiness is rare, and rarity attracts respect. There is something deeply empowering about reclaiming control in small actions. Not flashy control, quiet control, the kind no one applauds. When you practice discipline at this level, you stop needing external validation. You stop negotiating your worth through outcomes. You begin to trust yourself again. That trust changes how you speak, how you move, how you decide. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free," and discipline is a form of bravery. It's the courage to govern yourself without drama, without excuses, without an audience. You don't need to overhaul your life. In fact, trying to do too much at once is another form of undisciplined thinking. Stoicism emphasizes focusing on what is within your control, and your next small action is always within reach. Choose one daily standard that feels almost insultingly simple, something your mind wants to dismiss. Then treat it as sacred, not because it's important in itself, but because you said you would. This is how you retrain self-respect. You don't chase it. You practice it every day. Here's a simple Stoic exercise to anchor this. At the start of the day, state one small commitment clearly in your mind. No embellishment, no negotiation, just a clean promise. Then throughout the day, observe your impulses without obeying them. You're not suppressing them, you're witnessing them. This is classic Stoic discipline, seeing impressions before reacting. At the end of the day, reflect briefly. Not with judgment, with honesty. Did you keep your word? If yes, acknowledge it calmly. If not, note it without drama and reset. Treated self-reflection as maintenance, not punishment. You should too. Another exercise is voluntary discomfort, practiced lightly, not extreme, just enough to remind your mind that comfort is not in charge. The Stoics use this to dissolve fear and dependence. When you choose discipline over ease in small ways, you break the illusion that feelings dictate action. This strengthens something ancient in you, something steady, and that steadiness radiates outward. People trust it instinctively. Understand this: respect is not demanded, it's emitted. And what you emit comes from who you are when no one is watching. Lacking discipline in small daily actions tells the world and yourself that your word is flexible, that your standards are negotiable, that comfort has veto power. Discipline reverses that message without a single speech. It makes your presence heavier, calmer, more grounded. You don't need to announce it, you become it. So don't wait for motivation. Stoicism never did. Act first. Let feeling catch up later. Start where you are, start small, start today. The moment you stop breaking tiny promises to yourself is the moment respect begins to return, quietly, steadily, and permanently. Number 8, breaking your word, even in minor matters. When you break your word, even in the smallest, quietest ways, something inside you fractures long before anyone else notices. You may think it doesn't matter. You may tell yourself it was minor, forgettable, harmless. But the Stoics understood something most people ignore. Character is not revealed in grand moments, it is exposed in private inconsistencies. Warned, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Your word is where that begins. Every promise you make is a mirror. Every time you fail to honor it, you teach yourself, slowly, subtly, that your own commitments are flexible. And once that lesson sinks in, respect begins to leak out of your life like air from a cracked vessel. You don't lose respect overnight. You erode it, bit by bit. Each time you say you'll do something and don't follow through, you signal to your own mind that your intentions are negotiable. This isn't about morality in a dramatic sense. It's about internal alignment. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." When your words and actions drift apart, you live in quiet contradiction. Others feel it before they can name it. You feel it as hesitation, self-doubt, and a strange lack of weight behind your voice. People may still listen to you, but they stop believing in you. Worse, you stop believing in yourself. Breaking your word weakens your presence, not loudly, not visibly, but perceptibly. You become someone who explains instead of someone who stands, someone who compensates with talk because action no longer speaks for you. The Stoics placed enormous value on integrity because they saw it as the foundation of inner freedom. If you cannot trust yourself, how can you expect to remain steady when pressure arrives? Seneca wrote, "What progress, you ask, have I made? I have begun to be a friend to myself." Friendship with yourself begins with reliability, with doing what you said you would do, especially when no one is watching. Here's the uncomfortable truth you may resist at first. The size of the promise doesn't matter. Your nervous system doesn't measure scale. It only registers consistency. When you break your word in minor matters, you train yourself to delay, excuse, rationalize. You normalize avoidance. Over time, this becomes a habit, and habits quietly sculpt identity. You don't wake up one day as someone others don't respect. You rehearse it, repeatedly, through small betrayals of your own standards. Stoicism asks you to live deliberately, to act with intention rather than impulse. When you give your word casually, you cheapen it. When you keep it faithfully, you strengthen it. This is not about becoming rigid or severe. It's about becoming precise, speak less, promise less. But when you commit, internally or externally, stand by it. Reminded himself, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Respect grows in the space between restraint and follow-through. You don't need approval to rebuild this habit. You don't need validation. You need discipline. Start by noticing how often you speak without intention, how often you agree out of convenience, how often you reassure without planning to act. Awareness is the first exercise. For the next few days, slow your speech. Before you say, "I will," pause, ask yourself if you are willing to carry the weight of that statement. If not, don't say it. Silence is not weakness, it is accuracy. Then practice alignment in solitude. Make one small promise to yourself each day and honor it without negotiation. No bargaining, no excuses. This trains the muscle of self-trust. Epictetus taught that freedom comes from mastery of the self, not control over outcomes. When you keep your word to yourself, you reclaim authority over your actions. You stop being reactive. You become grounded. Another exercise: review your day each night as the Stoics did. Ask yourself, not harshly but honestly, where your words and actions matched and where they diverged. This isn't for guilt, it's for calibration. Seneca believed reflection sharpened virtue. Each honest review tightens the gap between intention and behavior. As you rebuild this habit, something subtle but powerful happens. Your words gain gravity. You speak less, but what you say lands. You no longer need to convince or perform. People sense coherence. Respect returns, not because you demand it, but because consistency commands it. This is not about perfection. You will stumble. What matters is correction. When you fail to keep your word, acknowledge it fully. Not with excuses, not with stories, with responsibility. That alone restores more respect than empty apologies ever could. Stoicism is not about pretending to be flawless. It's about refusing to live in self-deception. You don't need to change your personality. You need to tighten your standards. Your word is a contract with reality. Honor it and you become reliable. Break it and everything else you try to build stands on unstable ground. Choose carefully, speak deliberately, act decisively. Respect is not something you chase. It is something you earn, quietly, consistently, every time you do exactly what you said you would do. Number 9, needing to be liked by everyone. Needing to be liked by everyone is one of the quietest ways you give your power away, and most people don't even notice it happening. It doesn't feel like weakness at first. It feels polite. It feels kind. It feels socially intelligent. But beneath that surface, something corrosive is forming. The Stoics warned against this long before social approval became a currency. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That line isn't poetic comfort. It's a warning. The moment you organize your behavior around how others perceive you, you stop living by principle and start living by reaction. You begin outsourcing your self-worth. And once that happens, respect, both self-respect and the respect of others, slowly erodes. When you need everyone to like you, your words lose weight. You soften truths before they even leave your mouth. You hesitate. You adjust your tone not based on what is right, but on what is safe. Over time, you train yourself to scan rooms instead of your conscience. Wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Read that again. If your internal compass is constantly by external approval, your character becomes flexible. And flexible character is unreliable. People sense this instinctively. Respect doesn't come from being agreeable, it comes from being grounded. When you're always trying to be liked, you become predictable, and predictability without conviction invites dismissal. There's also a deeper cost that rarely gets discussed. The habit of people-pleasing fractures your inner life. You start feeling tension between what you think and what you say, between what you want and what you allow. That tension drains energy. Seneca warned, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If your emotional state rises and falls with approval or disapproval, you're not in control. You're managed. And nothing kills respect faster than emotional dependency disguised as kindness. Calm strength doesn't ask to be liked. It doesn't negotiate its existence. It simply is. You may tell yourself that being liked keeps the peace, but peace built on self-erasure never lasts. Over time, resentment builds even if you don't consciously notice it. You feel overlooked, underappreciated, invisible, and that resentment leaks out in subtle ways: passive compliance, internal withdrawal, quiet bitterness. The Stoics believed harmony comes from alignment with virtue, not with applause. Epictetus made this clear. If you seek truth, you will not seek victory by dishonorable means. Approval-seeking is one of those dishonorable shortcuts. It trades integrity for comfort. And comfort, when it becomes the goal, dulls the edge of your character. Respect requires friction, not constant conflict, but the willingness to stand firm when your values are tested. If everyone likes you, it's often because you've made yourself small enough to fit into their expectations. But smaller versions of you don't inspire trust. They don't inspire admiration. They inspire convenience. Stoicism teaches that your task is not to be liked, but to be aligned, with reason, with virtue, with self-command. Reminded himself daily, "I must not feel harmed, and I haven't been." That mindset breaks the addiction to approval. When you stop interpreting disapproval as damage, you regain freedom. Here, where action begins. Start by practicing deliberate emotional restraint. When you feel the impulse to seek validation, pause. Don't correct it immediately, just notice it. Ask yourself quietly, am I about to speak to be honest or to be liked? That single question can interrupt years of conditioning. The Stoics believed awareness precedes discipline. Without awareness, habits rule you. With it, habits become choices. Another exercise is intentional silence, not avoidance. Silence with presence. When you feel pressure to fill space to maintain approval, resist it. Let pauses exist. Let others sit with uncertainty. Seneca wrote, "He who knows how to be content will always have enough." Silence signals sufficiency. It communicates that you don't need constant affirmation to exist comfortably. Over time, this changes how others respond to you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. You should also train yourself to accept mild disapproval daily. This isn't self-punishment, it's conditioning. Choose not to explain yourself when you normally would. Choose not to over-justify. Choose not to smooth every edge. Let misunderstanding occur without rushing to repair it. Epictetus advised, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Other people's opinions are not in your power. Your conduct is. Respect grows when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Another powerful practice is internal validation journaling. At the end of the day, don't ask whether you were liked. Ask whether you were consistent. Did your actions match your principles? Did you speak when it mattered? Did you hold your line calmly? Didn't end his days with applause metrics. He ended them with self-audits. That habit builds an internal authority that no external opinion can override. Needing to be liked also blurs your boundaries. Stoicism is clear on this. Boundaries protect virtue. Seneca warned, associate with people who are likely to improve you. When you need universal approval, you associate indiscriminately. You dilute your standards, and diluted standards lead to diluted respect. You don't need to harden yourself. You need to clarify yourself. There's a difference. Calm firmness is not cruelty, it's clarity. The shift you're aiming for isn't becoming cold or distant, it's becoming anchored. When you stop chasing approval, your energy returns. Your words slow down, your presence steadies. People may not always like you, but they will feel something stronger. Reliability, gravity, self-possession. These are Stoic virtues in motion. Remember this, respect follows those who don't beg for emotional permission to exist. The Stoics didn't teach isolation. They taught independence of judgment. When you reclaim that, you don't lose connection, you purify it. You stop performing, you start standing. So take action. Today, choose one moment where you act without checking the room. One moment where you trust your reason over reaction. One moment where you let approval go unanswered. These small acts compound. Over time, you'll notice something profound. The less you need to be liked, the more seriously you're taken. And even more important, the more solid you feel within yourself. Number 10, abandoning your principles for short-term comfort. Abandoning your principles for short-term comfort is one of the quietest ways you lose respect, first from yourself and then from everyone else. It doesn't happen loudly. There's no dramatic collapse. It happens in small moments where you choose ease over alignment, relief over integrity, silence over truth. And each time you do, something inside you weakens. Warned, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That sentence isn't poetic decoration. It's a command. Because the moment you start negotiating with your principles, you teach yourself that they are optional. And once your own word stops carrying weight with you, nothing you say or do feels solid anymore. You feel this erosion long before others notice it. You sense it when you justify decisions you know don't sit right. When you tell yourself, just this once, just for now, it's easier this way. Comfort becomes your compass, and principles become something you reference only when it's convenient. The Stoics were ruthless about this. Epictetus made it clear that character is revealed not in comfort, but in pressure. When comfort becomes the priority, you stop training your character. You stop sharpening your edge. You start drifting. And drift is dangerous because it feels harmless while it's happening. Short-term comfort always asks the same price, a small betrayal of who you know you should be. That price compounds. Each compromise makes the next one easier. You don't wake up one day without values, you slowly starve them. And the cost is respect. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something that radiates naturally when your actions are consistent with your inner code. When people sense that you bend depending on circumstances, they may not articulate it, but they feel it. And once that feeling sets in, your presence loses gravity. The Stoics didn't preach rigid morality for appearances. They understood something deeper. Inner coherence creates strength. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." Bravery here doesn't mean loud defiance. It means the quiet courage to endure discomfort without abandoning yourself. When you choose principle over comfort, you may feel tension, but you also feel clean. There's a steadiness that comes from knowing you didn't sell your values for temporary relief. That steadiness becomes visible. It changes how you speak, how you stand, how you decide. People respond to that even if they don't consciously know why. If you're honest, you already know where you've been trading alignment for ease. The Stoics would tell you not to beat yourself up for it, but also not to lie to yourself. Self-respect begins with clear sight. Constantly reminded himself to examine his own conduct without excuses. That's where your work starts, not with grand declarations, but with awareness. Notice when your mind reaches for comfort as an escape. Notice how fast it tries to rationalize. That moment of noticing is power. It's the space where you can choose differently. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking what feels easiest right now, and start asking what aligns with the person I claim to be. That question changes everything. It slows you down, it interrupts impulse. It forces you to live deliberately. The Stoics believe that a good life is built moment by moment through conscious choice. Not dramatic sacrifices, consistent alignment. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be honest and firm. There's a simple practice you can adopt starting today. At the end of each day, do what Seneca advised, review your actions. Ask yourself where you acted in accordance with your principles and where you abandoned them for comfort. Don't judge, just record. This reflection sharpens your internal compass. Over time, you'll start catching yourself earlier, sometimes right in the moment. That's progress. That's strength returning. Another exercise is pre-commitment. Decide your principles before pressure appears. Write them down if you need to. When the moment of discomfort arrives, you won't have to negotiate. You'll already know your answer. Epictetus emphasized this discipline repeatedly. Prepare your mind in advance. A prepared mind doesn't panic when comfort is threatened. It stays anchored. And anchoring yourself is how respect is rebuilt. You also need to retrain your relationship with discomfort. The Stoics didn't avoid it, they used it. Discomfort is feedback. It tells you where growth is required. When you flee it, you remain the same. When you face it without betraying yourself, you expand. Remind yourself that comfort is temporary, but character is cumulative. Every time you choose principle, even when it costs you ease, you reinforce the kind of person you are becoming. This isn't about becoming rigid or cold. It's about becoming reliable to yourself first. When you know you won't abandon your values for convenience, your confidence stabilizes. You stop over-explaining. You stop seeking validation. Your actions speak with clarity. Put it simply, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Being one requires friction. It requires saying no to the seductive pull of comfort when it conflicts with who you are. Take action now. Identify one principle you've been compromising, just one. Decide today that the next time it's tested, you will hold it even if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable. That moment will matter more than you think. Respect is rebuilt in these quiet, unseen decisions. And the more often you choose alignment over relief, the stronger and calmer you become. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to prove anything. You need to stop abandoning yourself. When you do, respect follows naturally, internally first, externally second. That is Stoic strength. That is how you reclaim your center. Before you go, remember this. Respect is not demanded, it is demonstrated. The Stoics taught that your power is not in controlling how others see you, but in mastering how you carry yourself when no one is applauding. Every habit we discuss today quietly shapes the way the world responds to you. Some elevate you without words, others silently erode your presence. Warn that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. The same is true of your actions. What you tolerate, what you chase, what you react to, these things train people how to treat you. The moment you stop abandoning your standards for approval, something changes. Your silence gains weight. Your words gain value. Your presence becomes undeniable. If even one habit in this video made you pause, that's your signal. Awareness is the first act of discipline. Correction is the second. Respect is the reward. If this video helped you see yourself more clearly, make sure you like it, share it with someone who needs this message, and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom that sharpens your character and strengthens your presence. And remember, a Stoic does not beg for respect. He lives in a way that makes disrespect impossible.